First Peter chapter 3. So continuing on our Love and Respect series. So we've been doing a couple. So we're going through the men's side and things that men as husbands we need to be doing to strengthen our relationship with our wives. And the acronym that the author uses is couple. So we did closeness and openness. Today we're going to go through understanding. And we'll see, these are all, especially these first three, really tie in together. One is, you could combine them all into one thing really if you wanted to, but they all work together. But we'll go through understanding. Then we'll have peacemaking, loyalty, and esteem. So that's the acronym we're using for couple. And today we're doing 1 Peter chapter 3. Verse number 7 is the verse we're going to read. The Bible says, "Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge." And that's kind of the place we're going to focus on there. "Giving honor unto the wife, as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered." Now, I don't think anybody in here would be this way, but hopefully, wives, you understand the weaker vessel is not a slam. It's not saying you're less than or worthless or weak and not strong. That's not what God is saying here. But we'll get into that here in a little bit. But first thing I want to talk about is our understanding. For men, this is how men understand things. And obviously we know, if you've been married any amount of time, men and women are different. Not just physiologically, which is not a word, but physically, which is a word. Physically different, but emotionally different. Mentally different, right? We understand things differently. We see things differently. We hear things differently. We talked about our blue sunglasses for men and pink sunglasses for women, and hearing aids the same way. Basically, the way we interpret things as men and women is different. We can see the same situation and feel different about it, think different about it. And as a couple, as husband and wife, we need to work on deciphering each other and understanding each other, understanding how the other person may see things, how the other person may hear things, and how if it's different, that's okay. And come to an understanding that it doesn't, every time we see things differently, it doesn't become a full-out war or just a stop in conversation, but we're able to understand each other to grow and to grow closer together, and understanding for this week where wives are coming from, how maybe they're seeing things or how they're feeling things. So husbands, it's kind of stereotypical. Husbands aren't always great at being in touch with their emotions. And you know what? Your wife, stereotypically, again, this is a broad brush, doesn't necessarily apply to everybody all the time, but your wife has emotions and feelings, and she needs you to understand them. And she needs you to want to understand them. Not begrudgingly. Not like, I guess I will just so you shut up, understand emotions, right? I know no one would say that out loud, right, to their wife, but sometimes that can be the way we approach things. And for a husband and for a man, when we're trying to understand things, when it's emotional or there's a problem, we want to fix it, right? That's how men are built. That's how God made us, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But men want to fix things. So if a problem comes up, immediately we start running through the scenario. Okay, so how do we fix this? Step 1, step 2, step 3. If we do these things, it should fix it. If it doesn't, we'll work a solution on why it didn't and try to fix it after that. So that's how men think and men work. Women, not necessarily, right? Women don't, we'll get there here in a minute, but women don't always want things fixed.
Yes.
Okay, see? You felt that. We felt that deep in our heart. Women don't always want things fixed, right? And men, we need to understand that, because men, we want to fix it, and that's just how we operate. And sometimes, girls don't want them fixed. No man would have a conversation with his buddy and be like, "Man, Joe, I really got this problem at home or at work or whatever. I got this problem. I just not really sure how to figure it out." And Joe would be like, "Wow, that sounds hard." Joe's not going to do that. Joe's going to be like, "All right, well, here's how we fix it. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? We'll do this. Don't be stupid. Do this." That's how men operate. And when they'll be like, "Okay, that's a good idea. I'll try it." Maybe Joe's wrong. Maybe Joe has no idea what he's talking about, but he's offering solutions. And, Joe's friend is going to try him out, or he's going to think he's an idiot and not try it out. And that'll just be eliminating a possible solution. But that's how men think, and women aren't that way. And a man would never operate that way with his friend. But guys, with your wife, we have to operate differently, right? Your wife is your best friend. It should be, but she's not your best guy friend, right? They think differently. They operate differently. And the Bible verse here telling us to dwell according to knowledge or to understanding. And for us as husbands, it's not just, oh man, we got to do this. It's a requirement. And like I said, begrudgingly do it. But we should desire to want to understand our wives. Like it should be something if we aren't quite there yet, which we probably won't necessarily ever get there, but we should want to. We shouldn't be satisfied with, she's a woman, I don't get her. I don't have the emotions she has. I just don't operate that way. So whatever, we'll just blow over it and we'll move on. As a husband, we should not be okay with that mindset. Our mindset should be, I want to understand her, desiring to live in a way that you want to understand your wife. You want to, so that you can be for her what you're supposed to be, right? We're supposed to love our wives like Christ loved the church. Christ never went, you stupid human, you keep making mistakes, I don't have time for this. Or I don't understand how, God obviously understands everything because he made us. But if the way he is, we don't operate the way he operates. And if he were to say, well, man, you just keep doing things I don't get because I am not like that, and blow us off or dismiss the fact that we are human, or dismiss the feelings or thoughts that we have as invalid because they don't live up to how he views things, God doesn't treat us that way. Right? God accepts us, God loves us, and we're supposed to love our wife like he loves us. That means we should want to understand and work at becoming the husband we're supposed to be. Then the Bible talks about with the weaker vessel, and again, that's not less than, right? And it's not even as weak as in strength necessarily, but it's just a biblical role. And if the biblical roles are followed for a husband and wife, the weaker vessel is not because of her abilities or lack of abilities or even emotional stability or any of those things. It's as a wife, you're weaker to your husband because you place yourself in a place of vulnerability, really. As a wife, you place yourself in subjection to your husband. That's vulnerable. And again, if you're following biblical roles and doing what God has said you as a wife should do, you make yourself vulnerable by placing yourself in subjection to your husband, who is a human being, right? And that makes you not a weaker as in it's not as good as, but just in a subjective sense, which is what God says to do. It's submission and it's vulnerability to your husband within that relationship, right? Within that marriage. And that's a lot of times that's where it falls apart right there, right away. Because you might be a very strong type A personality and have a hard time even putting yourself in subjection and putting yourself in that vulnerable position, even to your husband, whom you love with all your heart. That can be difficult. And it may be good on some days, and some days it may be hard to do that. And it's likely going to be difficult to do that in some ways and on some days. But that is the weaker vessel, I believe, that God is saying, is that you put yourself in that position because that's what God has given you as your role as a wife in that relationship. And so wives, you need to understand that, and hopefully that should help you understanding and being willing to put yourself in that position. But husbands, we have to understand that as well. You have to understand that your wife is required by the Lord to put herself in subjection to you. So that immediately gives you some responsibilities. That immediately gives you a protective position to be in for your wife because she is vulnerable to you. And you are in a spot where you can really kind of destroy and break down that vulnerability if you're not careful. And that's tied very closely into our ability and willingness to understand where our wife is coming from. So husbands, you can dishonor her if you treat her less than. If you treat her as though her weaker vessel is less than, not as good as, or doesn't live up to, you can really dishonor her by your inability or not treating her the proper way. If you think in your mind, or you even say, I just don't understand you. And again, there'll be times where, guys, you won't get where she's coming from. Like she'll be saying words, and they won't necessarily be making logical sense to you. And she'll be displaying emotions and telling you her feelings, and you'll be like, these are foreign concepts to me. I don't understand why this is an emotional situation. It's not. And to you. But you have to understand, if you say, I don't understand what you want from me, it's not even worth trying to figure out. You have dismissed her position in your relationship. And you have taken, hopefully, what she has done and put herself in submission to you and said, it's void. It doesn't matter. I don't get it. I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist. Now, you would never probably say those words. But if you dismiss her or don't try to understand, where she's coming from, that is in essence what you're saying. So when you don't desire to understand or don't put forth the effort to understand, you place her in an even more vulnerable position. If she is following the position and the role that God has given her to put herself in submission to you, and then you don't care to understand where she's coming from, you really kind of take her role and kind of shove it off to the side. And as a husband, might not be thinking that's what you're doing, but depending on how you handle those situations, you can do that. And it's a handle with care type thing. It's not fragile in the sense of the word that it's, any little thing will break it, but it's fragile as in it's valuable. Right? The position your wife is in and the role that God has given to her in your marriage is valuable. And when you have valuable things, you handle them with care. You take care of them. You baby them, right? Guys, take your material possessions, whatever collections you have, or your vehicles, or your whatever, your bowling balls. But Heath is not here to, But those types of things that we like and we take care of, we put them behind glass. We put them in its case. We make sure we cover them, like we take care of them, right? And I'm not saying the wife is a possession, but it's a valuable position in your relationship, and as a husband, it's your responsibility to handle that with care. It's kind of like a Tupperware bowl versus a porcelain bowl, right? Guys, we're Tupperware. You can knock us around, you can drop us, we're going to be fine. Your wife, she's not Tupperware. She's porcelain, right? They serve similar purposes, right? They not one's not better than the other one. They're both if they're bowls, they both can be bowls. But one you treat differently. You handle it differently. If it's a porcelain bowl, it's the Tupperware's, well, in this case, porcelain is probably more valuable than Tupperware. But as far as its use, right, they could do the similar things, but you're gonna treat that porcelain bowl differently. Maybe a better analogy for husbands and wife is the wife is a porcelain bowl and the husband's a hammer. Right? The husband's a hammer, wife's a porcelain bowl. If you come at your porcelain bowl like a hammer, you're going to break your porcelain bowl. Right? And again, a hammer's not better than a porcelain bowl. They both have different purposes and can do things differently, not the same. But if as a husband, the hammer, you just kind of coming at your wife all the time like a hammer comes, it's going to damage your wife. It's going to damage her spirit and her vulnerability. You're not handling it with care. So the porcelain can be cracked and even broken if you're not careful, right? If the words that you use and the dismissal or the words you don't use aren't used properly, you can crack your wife's spirit, right? And we're supposed to dwell with knowledge. That means you need to work at understanding where your wife is coming from, right? Statements like, you don't make any sense. Or it's just impossible to tell what you want. I don't get you. You don't make sense. I don't know what you want from me. And then turning around, going into the office and just shutting down, stonewalling, and be like, I have no idea what you want from me. You're too complicated. I don't get it. And taking off as a husband is taking your hammer and just tapping that porcelain bowl. The harder you start tapping it, you're going to have problems. You're going to cause problems. You can't do those things to your porcelain bowl. You have to take care of her. You have to understand her. Remember, God has given her to you. If she was like your buddy, she would not be what you need, right? If she acted like your best friend did, if she acted like your coworkers do, if she acted like what your brother does, she wouldn't be what you need. God made her the way He made her so that she is what you are not, right? She's your ally. And that's how we have to look at our spouses. We have to look at our wife as our ally. She's not our competition. We're not trying to get around stuff with her or try to overcome things with her or try to get by with stuff with her. She's our ally, right? And she needs her hammer to understand her. She needs her hammer to want to understand her. And hammers don't always get that. Hammers just want to hit stuff. Or hammers just want to fix something, right? That's what a hammer wants to do. It's what hammers do. But sometimes hammers need to slow down and, try to understand where your wife is coming from. And the principles of this couple anagram, right, are They're similar, and they were, like I said, they rely on each other. Closeness and openness, we talked about those. Your wife wants you to be close to her. She wants you to be open to her. And when you're close with your wife intentionally, and you're transparent and open with her, you have a much better opportunity to understand her. And so that's why these things all work together. The closer you draw to your wife, and the more open you become with her with everything you are, right? There's no parts of your brain or your heart or your personality that are off limits to your wife. Right? You don't keep things off to the side that she doesn't get to see or that she doesn't know about you. And those things take time. The longer you're married, though you start to learn more about each other. But as a husband, when you are just completely open with your wife, remember 2 weeks ago, we had that open door, that the sunshine come through, there's no screen, no nothing. That's how we as husbands need to be with our wives. But we like to put screen doors up, we like to pull the glass window down, and we like to keep things kind of compartmentalized because that's how men operate. But with your wife, there's no compartmentalizing. You need to be open. You need to be completely honest with her. And when you're close with her and you're willing to be open and understanding, that understanding comes. And then she'll feel that from you too as you draw closer and as you are open and you begin to understand. She will feel love from you by those actions. And then we're on the energizing cycle where she feels loved. And then she's going to treat you with respect that you need. And we'll get to those in future weeks for the wives doing for the husbands. But she needs to feel that you want to understand her. And if you want to understand her, in order to want to do that, you've got to be open with her. You've got to be close to her. Those things come. Again, remember, the husband is the Christ figure in the marriage. So if you find yourself acting ways that Christ wouldn't act, then you probably need to change the way you act. And you can't blame it on your personality. You can't blame it on the way your dad was. You can't blame it on, that's just how I am. No, those are not valid excuses. Those are, you now know the things you need to work on. You can't say it's just my personality. You say, okay, now you just, basically what you've done is you've given your weakness and now you need to work on those things. Change those things, that it's not just okay. So, we are the Christ figure in the marriage and the wife is in church. And as the church, think about us as the church. What do we do with the Lord? We place our burdens on Him. Right? We take our burdens to God and we want Him to understand us. And we place our burdens to Him because we know He can carry them. Right? He can carry the load. The hard things, the simple things, whatever our view of our burdens are, we bring those to God. We bring those to Christ. And He gladly accepts them and carries them. He doesn't ask us to do something for it. He carries them for us because He loves us. Your wife needs to view you in that way as well, where she can bring her burdens to her husband, and her husband is willing to carry them and take them. Right? When she is coming to you for understand that's a compliment to you. If your wife comes to you and she wants to just, I've used this term and I only use it because it's shocking and it sticks with you, but if your wife wants to come to you and she's got diarrhea of the mouth, right? I'm sorry. It's just like, blah, we've all been there, right? It's just, we got all the words and all the emotions and everything just comes at one time. Husbands, take it as a compliment. Understand your wife wants to bring her cares, her burdens, and she's bringing them to you. Again, you want her to call her mom again? No, you don't. You want her to come to you. Come to you and unburden herself to you. And when she comes to you for understanding, it's a compliment. And so you, as the husband, should go, oh, no. Oh, here we go again. I got an hour's worth of trying to bring her and put her back together. And no, that's the wrong view. Understand she needs you to be the one that she can do that to, that she can come to and bring those things to. But if you shut her out, or if you close her out, close her down, shut her down, close her out, and you just don't seem to hear her or care, cracks are going to start forming in that porcelain bowl. And you're going to be the cause of them because you don't know how to handle it or you're unwilling to handle it. So how do we show understanding? What are some ways that we can show understanding? Now, here's the number one thing, and we all know this. This is not a surprise. This is not revelatory. You've heard this a billion times before if you've been married for any amount of time. The number one way to show understanding, listen. You just have to listen. It's real easy. You just have to listen. So we have the famous video that shows how we're supposed to listen. Hopefully it works. If I have to turn it up, I can turn it up.
And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
She has a nail in her head, James.
She has what?
A nail.
Oh, a nail.
Did you have a nail in your head?
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. Listen, fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. My sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
Ow!
Oh, if you would just
Don't.
So, it's not about the nail, right? So the video, I mean, it feels real, doesn't it? I mean, it kind of does a little bit. It's okay. But because men hear blue and see blue, and women hear pink and see pink, it's just different. And as a man, we have to understand, we see blue, we're going to look for solutions. She had a nail sticking out of her forehead, and she was unwilling to find the actual problem and wanted to solve it. She didn't want to solve it at that moment. Now we can go through that at some point as well, but for now we're not going to do that. We just want to understand, as a husband, she doesn't necessarily want the nail out. Now, we're going to be like, but that would fix it. I know it would. It would fix everything. I get that. But in this situation, when she comes to you sometimes with issues and problems, sometimes she just needs your ears. Sometimes she just needs you to hear things. And you know what? Once you allow, if in that situation, and the situations we have, once you allow her to unburden herself and you just listen without trying to solve it, more than likely at either then or down the road, that part of the conversation will come. Right? Where the solutions will be asked for. Right? You won't be just giving them without solicitation. You'll have put your time in to try to understand where she's coming from and see her point of view on things. And whether it's at the end of that conversation or a day later or a week later, the conversation will come again where you are able to offer your help and solutions to try to fix the problem. But you just have to understand when those times come and when that is necessary. So, you can ask, and wives, you got to help your husband with this too. Because again, he cannot read minds. I know he can't read minds, so he doesn't know everything that's going on in here. But you can help your husband by letting him know if you're wanting a solution or if you just need him to listen. And husbands, you can ask the question when those conversations come, and we all know when they happen. Are you wanting a solution, or do you just need me to listen? And if he asks you that, wives, just be honest then. Just say, I just need you to listen. And then guys, just let her unburden herself. Let her tell you. Don't try to fix it. But wives, if you want a solution, if that's where the conversation is at, let him know. So he knows, okay, let's start to work on this. Work on a solution and give him permission and understanding. Help him out with some cues on how he can proceed. And those are good. Again, this is a good way to understand each other, because if you're like me as a husband, and I won't throw Lisa under the bus at all, but if you're like me as a husband, sometimes we don't know what path to take. And so what I do, I won't take a path at all. And nothing will happen. Right? And then sometimes there's frustration on the other end because nothing is happening in the conversation. So it's all about understanding each other and knowing where to go and just being, again, open with each other, being close, and trying and wanting to understand will allow conversations to happen. But if the husband's like, okay, I don't know what to do. Last time I tried something, I got my head bit off, so I'm just going to try nothing. And then the wife is frustrated because he doesn't seem to care. And then it's bad. You're on the crazy cycle because there's uncertainty. and there's not complete openness. So husbands, don't be afraid to tell your wife, look, I don't know how to go. I don't know where to go right now. I don't know where you want me to go. And wives, don't be offended if he says that. Understand he's trying to understand. And so if he just flat out says, I don't know what to do in this situation, I'm terrified. Just be like, I get it. It's okay. I would like a solution. Or I want your thoughts on this. Or I just need you to hear me out. I just need to get it out. I need to hear it audibly maybe, right? Be honest with each other. There's nothing wrong with being transparent. You've already married each other. You should always try to impress each other, but it's not like you're going to ruin something if you just look like an idiot, right? You've stuck your foot in your mouth numerous times, both parties. We've seen each other with our right up to the ankle, all the way in the mouth. We've been there. It's okay. It's not like, oh man, look out what a fool you made of yourself. I can't date you anymore. No, you've passed that line, right? You're married. You've committed. So be honest, be open, understand, try to understand. When you understand husbands, when you understand the importance she puts on sometimes just listening, you show love. And you give her an opportunity to unburden herself to you, right? Your wife needs time for talking. Guys, we don't always need times for talking. It can be really simple, 2 sentences, and we're caught up, right, with your friends. But your wife, she needs to talk things out. That's how she builds rapport with her friends and with you as well. That's how she builds that relationship, is through talking. So you need to understand the importance she puts on sharing things with you. She probably puts a lot of importance on sharing her day, her emotions, her thoughts, her plans, her fears. She puts a lot of importance on sharing those things with you, and you need to understand that she puts importance on that. And you also need to understand she puts importance on you sharing those things with her. Now that may be more difficult for you as a husband to share those things that come to her easily. But she, again, feels loved, and you're open when you share those things with her about yourself. And you don't have to do that with anyone else, okay? You don't have to do that unless you're having a counseling session with somebody. It's good to be honest and completely open. But you don't have to come to me, guys, and share your deepest, darkest anythings, okay? You can keep those too, but your wife wants to hear those. Your wife wants to hear your deepest, darkest, all those things. And that's the only person you should have to do that with. Because when you do those things, she feels loved. And when she feels loved, that builds respect for you in her heart. And so you need to work on understanding that's how she feels when you share your feelings. And that's, sometimes you'll be like, okay, I can try to understand her. I can even shut up and let her talk and let her get all those things off without trying to fix anything. I can get through that. I'll just grab the cushions of the couch real hard and just be like, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. Listen to what she's saying. Don't think that the whole time. But to share my feelings now, now you're saying share my feelings with her. It's uncomfortable. Yeah, I know. It can be. And you know what? For a guy, you're afraid of judgment, even from your wife. You're afraid of what she may think of you or not think of you if you share those things. And wives, to be honest, sometimes guys don't share those things because they don't want to go there. They don't want to know that what you think about it, because what if it's bad? What if what you think about his fears or his emotions are scoffing or bad or really? And so they just won't. So if those are the types of responses they get when they do share those things, they will not share them very long. So as a wife, you have to understand where he's coming from. And as big, strong, strapping men, they're scared. We're scared. We're afraid to be disrespected in your eyes. And so we'll just keep all those things to ourselves, and we'll work through them or we won't. Whatever. We'll deal with it, and that's easier than sharing and maybe it not going so well. And so a lot of times that's what men will do. Now, guys, you've got to overcome that fear, again, and be open with your wife. And you can tell her, I'm afraid to tell you this because I don't know how you're going to think about it. And the wife's like, oh, no, what's he going to say? Right? But wives understand when he's doing that he's making that move. He's stepping closer to you. He's opening himself up. He's wanting to have that relationship deepen. Allow him to do that, right? Allow him to say those things, even if maybe they don't make sense when they come out, right? Or it's just really black and white, and you're like, but how do you feel about it? And he's like, I felt fine. You're like, yeah, but really, how do you feel? It's like, I just told you. I said I felt fine. Okay, understand. Again, he's coming from blue, you're coming from pink. Understand, he's not going to be like, well, there's just a lot of pressure. And every time when I do, he doesn't go that way. He's not going to operate that way. Take what he gives you and then work on that. And that's how you grow. And then when you start having those conversations, if you haven't done them very often, or only when it's, everything's exploded and now you have to have those conversations, it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel, you're not going to want to do it. It's going to feel bad. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you come with it, the more, and then you're going to almost, guys, you're going to expect it. It's going to be part of your relationship, and that's going to deepen your relationship. It's going to make it stronger. And that's good for her, because she's going to feel loved, and that's good for you, because she feels loved by you. And so you should want to do those things, not dread them or try to avoid them actively. Understand, you intentionally are going to have to make time for those moments, husbands. You have to allow time for those moments to happen. She wants to be understood, not dismissed. So if you're too busy, if there's always something to do, if there's always something to distract you from it, you're not going to give her those opportunities. She's going to feel dismissed eventually. So, honestly, it may be you may actually need to actually schedule a specific time for those things to happen. We all have our days. We all have our schedules. We know how it operates. You know how yours operates with each other, with the kids, everything that's involved. Guys, you may have to be the man and say, okay, when I get home from work, this first half hour, we're not eating supper right away. So plan it to start later. We're going in the bedroom. We're shutting the door. We're telling kids, go away. Go read some books. Do something else. We're going to talk. And you take that, whatever time it is, and you just sit and you let her talk to you and you talk to her. And you catch each other up on the day. You find out how we're feeling. It seems like it takes away some of the specialness of it if we do it on purpose. If you're not doing it already, maybe you need to do it on purpose. And guys, that's your wife would probably fall over with a heart attack if you're like, could we have some time to just talk? She'd be like, to what? Like, just talk? No kids? No nothing? Right, just talk. Just you and me. She'll spoon. Like, you're already winning. You think it's dumb and silly, but you've already won, right? You've already made headway in this situation. So if that's what's necessary to do, then do it. Do you not want to understand your wife? The answer is yes. You want to understand her, and you should be willing to do whatever you have to do that. There's no limits. There's no line that you won't cross to find out how to understand your wife better. That's how you treat your wife like Christ treats the church. It seems foreign sometimes and unnecessary, but you need to. We must. We must overcome our pride. We must humble ourselves and be willing to do whatever it takes to help understand our wife, because that's how she feels loved. And that's how we show love to her. So a few ways that we can help. Crazy, the guy here is just really confused. Help our wives. Help us to understand our wives. Listen and repeat back what she says. Now, a lot of this is just like basic conversations with human beings. Like, this is just social interactions, and human beings are bad, and so that's why we have things like this. But you just listen and you repeat back what she says to you, right? You don't think about what you're going to say next. You don't think about the solution to the things she said in the first 4 words, and then you're like, okay, get done. Okay, here's what I think, right? Listen with the intent of knowing, and then repeat back what she says, so she knows you're listening and you're understanding. Again, don't always seek a solution. Don't always try to fix it unless she is asking for one. And again, if you just listen through the first time when it comes up, most likely the conversation where she's looking for help, a solution or part of a solution, or at least your thoughts on it will likely come afterwards. Okay, again, you want to understand your wife, right? That's a desire you should have. So that means you need to try to identify her feelings. And this is where you'll be like, I don't know. It was different 2 minutes ago than it is right now. Yes, that's possible. Okay, but that's not an excuse to go, throw up our hands and say, yep, too hard. Too many different moving things. I have no idea what's going on. No. Become an expert in your wife. Become an expert at your wife. Like, no one should know her better than you. Right? Like, you should know your wife better than any other human being in the world. If you were to get into a hobby and you want to become an expert at it and be the best there was, you would do everything. You would study, you would research, you would try things, you would experiment, you would do all those things until you were an expert at that thing. And maybe that's your job. right? Whatever you do for work, you've worked on it for years and years and years, and you're the best at it, and you're good at it. If someone has a problem, they come to you in it. Why do we not do that with our wives? Why do we say, she's too emotional, I can't figure her out, we just kind of walk away? We should be an expert at your wife's feelings. You should be in tune with how she feels. It should be her girlfriends that know how she feels better than you. You should be an expert at your wife. You should care what she feels and identify them and know where she's standing, know where she's at, know where emotionally she is, know where her brain is at, know where physically where she's at. You should be an expert at your wife if you're trying to understand her. Never dismiss her feelings, no matter what your perception of them may be. If what she's saying seems completely illogical, right? Now she's saying, I think we should jump off this 5-story building and just see what happens. Okay, different story. But if she's giving you she's emotional, she's telling you about something that she's afraid of, she's hurt, or she's just confused on, don't be like, that makes no sense. What you're saying, literally, it's in fantasy land. Don't dismiss those emotions. Again, hear her out. Don't dismiss them, no matter what you think about it. Say, I appreciate you sharing that with me. When she shares things, again, this is just like basic human conversations that we should all be doing. But when she shares something, say, I appreciate you came to me and talked to me about that. I will think about that. I will consider what you've said. I see where you're coming from. Like, you can say nice things audibly to your wife. It's okay. Don't interrupt. Let her talk. Don't interrupt what she's saying. Let her finish her thoughts. And then this is not conversation, but this will help the understanding part of it. And we're all this way, at least, okay, I am this way. If there are things around the house or things at home or things with the kids that need to be done and you know it needs to be done, like, there's a towel laying on the ground or there's dishes in the sink or the kid is, needs a bath, whatever the case may be, if you can do those things, guys, do them without being hassled to do them. Without being your wife saying 4 times, did the kid get a bath yet? Did the kid get a bath yet? She's like, do I have to do this? Or are you going to help me out? Like, this will help. This seems like a completely different path than what we've been talking about up to this point. But it's you attempting to understand. She's got all these things she's trying to manage, right? She's got all these plates she's balancing on sticks. And they're wobbling and she's trying to keep them spinning. And if you see a wobbling plate and you go over and you fix it, you go big steps in helping her feel like you want to understand, that you understand where she's coming from and what she's dealing with. And you, for me as a man, I see it and it just doesn't even register. That needs to be done. The kid's dirty, okay, that's fine. We'll wipe them off later, right? Or there's a sink, there's a dish in the sink. Well, let's wait till there's 10 of them so we can do it all at once, right? Why are we doing one at a time? Okay, she doesn't think that way. You do. So think like she thinks and try to help her out with those things. And then lastly, express, and this ties in with that one, express your appreciation for what she does. Express whether she's a mom, whether she's not a mom, whether she's going to school, whether she works. She does things for you. She does things that you won't have to do, and she takes care of a lot of things. See those things and tell her you appreciate her. We do that for people at their jobs. If you're an employer, you express appreciation for your employees when they do things right. You do that with your kids. You do that with dogs. Like, good dog, you twirled, good job. But we won't say thank you to our wife for all the things that she does. Way more important than any of that. So it's a habit. You have to do it on purpose. You have to make a habit of it. And it will show your understanding to her, and she will feel loved, and you'll be on the energizing cycle, and everything will be amazing. Okay, I'm going to...